ones, compare yourselves to a tree. Take, for example, the vine. First it sheddeth its leaves, then cometh the bud, and then the leaf, then the flower, after that the unripe grape, and then the ripe grape. See how in a little time the fruit of the tree attaineth to maturity of a truth quickly, and suddenly shall his will be fulfilled. The Scripture also bearing witness that he shall come quickly, and shall not tarry, and the Lord shall come suddenly into his temple, even the Holy One whom ye expect. He's encouraging them. Keep waiting for the Lord.
It's because he's coming quickly.
Yes.
He's coming suddenly. It won't be long now. Even he was thinking that Jesus still, his coming was imminent.
Right.
That's what he's saying here. And it's just amazing to me that these guys believed in the imminent return of Christ and must have been sorely disappointed when each one of them came to die. They had to resign themselves to the fact that the Lord had not come back to save them and to establish the kingdom. Yeah. After their death, things really began to drift in that direction, that the Lord wasn't coming back.
Well, there were martyrdoms. In A.D. 107, Ignatius was martyred. In A.D. 108, the Emperor Trajan launched the third major wave of anti-Christian persecutions. Christian persecutions continued apace. And then there was a little period under Hadrian and Antoninus Pius, where after a while things kind of simmered down, and there was about a 40-year period in which churches were allowed to exist. However, it wasn't long after that there was another Roman persecution that came. And that one was under Marcus Aurelius. And by this time, the Christians had settled in to a kind of a patient waiting, thinking, well, surely he must come. But remember, J.R., the temple had been destroyed. That prophecy about Paul, about the man of sin written by Paul, standing in the temple, no longer had the immediacy that it did in the first century. They were thinking, well, the temple has to be rebuilt then before he can come and stand up in it. It's not even there now. Things must be a long way away. And they began to push back the coming of Christ.
Gary, I'm getting the feeling it's going to take 2 television programs to discuss all of this. This article that he has written is absolutely fabulous. I was just enthralled when I read it. I just couldn't put it down. It's absolutely amazing, because we are now discussing about prophecy lost. Soon we'll be talking about prophecy refound.
That's right.
You know, when it resurfaces again. But we need to lay out this lost. We need to lay it out so that it absolutely is thorough and people understand exactly what happened. We can't just gloss over this. We're going to take a little time and park here for a while, you know.
Okay.
Gary's article for this magazine is just wonderful. I want you to get the March edition of Prophecy in the News magazine and read about this article, Prophecy Lost and Found. It was not found, by the way, until in the early 1800s, and only flourished in the last 2 centuries. That's the reason why I want you to thoroughly understand how it was lost, as well as then how it has developed in the last 2 centuries. If you can, I want you to get this magazine. In the March magazine, I have begun a study in Daniel, Deciphering Daniel, and chapter 1 then is in the March magazine. But every month, for the next several months, we're going to be going through the book of Daniel chapter by chapter, and I want you to be able to see the research that went into this. So I urge you to subscribe to Prophecy in the News magazine for the next year. If you will, $29.95 is a year subscription. If you will subscribe, I want to give you as a bonus for your subscription 4 books that we have published here at Prophecy in the News. And they're right here. I want you to see them. First of all, there's The Mystery of the Menorah and the Hebrew Alphabet. And this is a marvelous piece of research. The 7 golden candlesticks is the menorah. And those 7 lamps, you know, there are 7s in the Bible. And when you come to that servant lamp in the middle, the 4th lamp of the 7th, is so important because of all the 7s in the Bible, the 4th one is the one that illuminates the other 6. It's not the first one, not the last one. It's always the 4th one that is the servant lamp. And then we have Hidden Prophecies and the Song of Moses. Moses was the first of the writing prophets. And when he set up the tabernacle in the wilderness, God gave him the design of this tabernacle. And Moses had a number of prophetic things to say, especially the Song of Moses, which he sang to them in Deuteronomy 32 and 33. And then, of course, 11 stanzas were removed from that and set in abeyance until King David published the second collection of the Psalms, which later, of course, after Solomon inserted his two between the first and second books, became the fourth book of the Psalms. It's a fascinating study. I want you to see Hidden Prophecies in the Song of Moses. And then we have one called Guardians of the Grail and the Men Who Plan to Rule the World. Now, each of these books sell for $11.95 and have in bookstores for years. And we've not gone up on the price. But the interesting thing is, and by the way, these would sell like $14.95 today. But these books are excellent pieces of research. Even today, they will help you to understand what's going on.
Let me just cut in here. I want to say about Guardians of the Grail, the book J.R. is now holding. Without a doubt, this book is worth having simply for the documentation. The bibliography and the footnotes are worth the price of admission.
Well, you know, I went up to Tim LaHaye one time at a book convention, and I said, I have a question I want to ask you. How do you market a book? Because I wanted to know, you know. We weren't selling as many as he was selling. He was selling millions of books, and so I thought he's the man to ask. And he said, well, Brother Church, I just want you to know, before I tell you the answer to your question, I have read Guardians of the Grail, and I want you to know, he said, that is one of the greatest works I've ever read. That's Tim LaHaye. And he said, it's right on target.
It is.
That's what he said. This is about European royalty and the rise of the Antichrist out of the tribe of Dan. And then we have the book, They Pierced the Veil and Saw the Future, a study of the 12 minor prophets and their major prophecies about the day of the Lord. These 4 books can be yours. This is a $78 value, the subscription for the magazine and the 4 books, all for $33.95. Call the phone number at the bottom of your screen and order them today. Subscribe to Prophecy in the News and read up on this incredible article, Prophecy Lost and Found. Be sure to ask for the March edition of Prophecy in the News when you place your order, so that we will know you want this particular issue and you can read up on it. Now, if you are not interested in subscribing, I would urge you at least to get the March edition. Once you read it, you may change your mind and want to subscribe for a year. It's $2.95. Call the phone number at the bottom of your screen. Order it today. Gary?
Now back to our study. And by the way, those books are fabulous. A lot of information to be gained in them. Back to our study about prophecy lost and found. J.R., there was a man called Justin Martyr. Around 130 A.D., Justin began to write something. And by the way, this is from his dialogue with Trypho. He began to write something that reveals a change in thinking. In chapter 7 of his second apology, Justin writes, "Wherefore God delays, causing the confusion and destruction of the whole world, by which the wicked angels and demons and men shall cease to exist, because the seed of the Christians who know that they are the cause of preservation in nature." He's beginning to say the reason for the existence of the church is to preserve the world and to better the world. And the idea implicit in this, and this is one of the first places you'll find this idea, which later becomes very prevalent in Augustine. The idea is that the church is to preserve the world and bring in the kingdom. It's an idea that began to steadily infuse the entire church.
Well, Jesus hadn't showed up yet.
That's right.
And so the theologians, even at mid-second century, and by the way, the interesting thing is, those who did not follow John's studies, the further away they were from John, who wrote the Apocalypse, and the further away they were in distance from Ephesus, the more non-prophetic they became, until they just actually set prophecy aside. Jesus didn't come back in the apostolic era, the turn of the century, when John died, somewhere around the turn of the century. Prophecy just was not relevant anymore. And the Jews, in particular, this temple in Jerusalem, well, it's destroyed. And you know, in A.D. 132 through 135, under the Bar Kokhba revolt, when Hadrian, the Roman army, came in, they destroyed the city. He sowed salt. He plowed the